Good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. Excited to get started again in another day of training, but I'd like to begin with a tip for those showing up early and on time. I really appreciate that. That does a lot to help us as we get rocking and rolling. So here's my tip for you. When you are building your visibility and your credibility out there using LinkedIn in particular, right? Social media, but LinkedIn is really where you want to be. When you're building your credibility out there, make sure you're sharing content that consistently is driving the message into my mind and everybody else's mind that you're an expert in a particular area. I hear people talk about, is it okay to share personal stories on LinkedIn? I don't really care about that as much as I want consistency, right? So if you drop a personal thing in, that's personal. The part that concerns me is sometimes people share content that's outside their area of expertise, or they're just reposting other people's content that really has nothing to do, is not related to what theirs is, right? Obviously, I want you to engage in my stuff, and occasionally you'll repost it if it makes sense to your network. But when you think about what content you're sharing, think about what your area of expertise is. So for example, my last company, my area of expertise was SharePoint. I would be sharing SharePoint related stuff. I might expand out to Microsoft, all things Microsoft 365, because that's there. There's third-party tools that tie into SharePoint. I might tie into those, but you want to keep that up. And the reason I want to point this tip out is because the flip side, I have people who I think they're experts in a particular area, but I don't even see their content much anymore. I have to proactively go there. LinkedIn won't send it to me because LinkedIn can tell I'm not engaging with people's content, a particular person's content. For example, they'll post content that I'll just kind of ignore because it has nothing to do with what I want to see. It's really unrelated. And it certainly is not why I look to them, that like the expertise they have. So I wish they would do more of what they have, because I go in and I engage, I comment. Compared to, there's somebody else, she posts content about proposal writing all the time. Occasionally these one-offs go off, off on a little tangent. But her content is consistent. So LinkedIn sees me giving it a thumbs up, commenting, putting in a dialogue in there, or engaging in dialogue in her post. And so I really want to provide that tip for you, is just make sure you're posting content that it really is related to your expertise. So LinkedIn can make more of us see your content, see your profile, and that we come and visit your company more often. Okay, so that was just a quick little tip for those of you early and on time. Post early, post often, post consistently in your expertise. All right, let me get my ducks in a row, and we're going to get diving into why small businesses should go all in on the federal market. I'm very excited about that particular topic. I talk about it a lot. When I teach people anything about government contracting, I'm always saying go all in the federal market. I put here, and by the way, no rabbits have been killed in my briefing here. I don't actually eat rabbit. But there's this line that says, if you chase two rabbits, you're not going to eat dinner tonight. If you chase two rabbits, you're constantly going to be changing direction. You're not going to catch either one of them, so you're not going to eat. And in sales, it's the same thing. If you chase two customers, you're not going to catch any one. That's why when you look at your pipeline, for example, if it has more than 20 opportunities in it, and you're a small business under 10 million, I would argue you got too many opportunities in there. Get rid of half of them and keep below 20, but make sure those 20 are the ones you can win, right? But a big reason about why I talk about the federal market compared to others, and I'm going to dive into this today, is those of us who know about the federal market and coach you, right? I've been in the market, I've been teaching this. We will sit there and say, and I think universally, everybody who's like me, who likes to give advice, whether it's from PTACs or consultants, et cetera, we all will give you the same advice about niching down on an agency. I like to say pick one agency. Many people will say pick two or three, but none of us say go after all the federal government at one time. It doesn't make any sense. So why would we sit there and encourage you to go after different markets, right? If I'm not going to tell you to go after the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, all of DOD, Fourth Estate, Department of Education, if I'm not going to tell you to go after all of that, then why would I recommend that you go outside the federal market? So part of it is focus that I'm going to talk about today. The other one, I put a couple of examples here, but personally, I remember, and this was in my last company. So for those of you who maybe weren't in business at this point, back in around the 2012 timeframe, this sequestration happened where basically the government tried to cut tens of billions of dollars in spending in 1 year. We're like, 5% across the board or 10% across the board, whatever it was. And so what happened was I had a massive amount of revenue coming out of a large prime, $1 billion firm, and they were just a cash cow for us. It was beautiful. They had the federal relationships and we had relationships with them. In 1 month, they said, hey, in the end of 30 days, we're not going to use you anymore because we lost people from our government contracts. We're bringing them back in-house. We're going to have them do your stuff. Thanks for working with us. We're like, what? Millions in revenue gone really fast. And so that's something that happens in a commercial market that is just crazy. It's all of a sudden they can just pull the carpet out from underneath you, the rug out from underneath you, and you fall, right? They make decisions on a fly. And for example, when COVID happened in 2020, 2021, so many people just stopped spending. Whole businesses shut down. Large businesses quit spending, sending people home, etc. The states, local government, and nonprofits, things like that, they all stopped spending. There might be one-off examples of somebody kept spending, but for the most part, everybody stopped spending except the federal market. The federal market spent trillions more. They printed money, right? It was crazy. And so the federal market is one, this is why I'm so bullish on it, why I like it, is because when you get in it and you get good and you get trusted, it'll be there forever. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. In today's training, I'm going to cover down what do I mean when I say the federal market, just to compare it for those of you, give you a good insight into that. I want to talk about this misunderstanding or even a myth of the federal government is not one company. It is. And then I want to talk about why you should go all in. I want to give you some tips on why you should go all in on the federal market. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. Right here, if you're looking at my screen, you can see the 7-step process that I lay out for federal government success. If you're a small business owner, or if you have a brand new business person, or if you have an experienced business developer, have them walk through this process. If you want to measure whether you're having success, follow this process. Research, targeting, and outreach are going to lead to relationships, opportunities, proposals that deliver the sales, right? So that's a process. I got a lot of training on it, but when you follow a process, you can have repeatable, predictable results. If you haven't done this already, put your company name into the chat with 2 or 3 keywords, right? And then connect with anybody in there who's open to connecting or who are chatting. This is a networking community. I'm going to be training a little bit, and on the side, chat among yourselves, or at least see who's in here and then connect with them offline. You want to proactively reach out to other people and connect with them if you want to establish a relationship. Don't wait for them to do it. All right, so let's talk about what is the federal market. And I didn't mean to animate that. Sorry about that. The federal market, and here I've got on this slide, I'm really trying to show that the federal market is this one big cloud. And on the left-hand side, you got a bunch of little clouds. So if you think about state and local government, here's California, state of California, you might be trying to work with them, or District of Columbia, or state of Texas, right? You've got commercial companies in here like ExxonMobil, Pfizer, AT&T. All these little clouds, right, represent companies, huge companies, right? Walmart, Geico, Safeway is a grocery store chain. These are great businesses, perhaps, to have as customers, but they do not work together. There's no commonality. Even in the state of California, there's a lot of different ways on how you do it across the board, right? There's hundreds of localities or local governments across the state of Texas, state of California. And so each one of them does business their own way. There's some interaction within one state, but there's no real interaction between California and Texas, for example. Certainly no interaction from Cardinal Health and AT&T. How they do things is completely separate. Now multiply these little clouds by 100, by 1,000, by 10,000 potential customers, and it's just all out there. You're constantly learning. You're constantly trying to figure out what's the best way to market to this company. What's the best way to hear about opportunities, et cetera. And so there's a lot in there. But when you look at the federal market over on the right-hand side, the federal market is this big cloud. And inside that big cloud could be these mini clouds, but they all fall under one big cloud. So Department of Justice, Centers for Disease Control, DHS, VA, Office of Personnel Management, or Department of Commerce, FEMA. There are so many agencies and potential buying offices within the federal government that they don't even know how many they have. But literally, there are thousands. One of the, I can't remember whether it was HHS or Department of Education. I think it was HHS. And the Osmond was talking about once he got into the role and really began to understand the department, he noticed how many different offices and agencies, like almost 200, I think he said, that are within HHS alone. But they all fall under this umbrella or this single cloud that is called the federal market. So let's talk about that, right? That one cloud, that big thing. I've heard people talk about this, and I was going to put, a myth. The myth is that the federal government is not one company, but I don't think it's a myth. I think it's a misunderstanding. I think there's people, contemporaries of mine who are in the federal market who say, hey, the federal government isn't one big buyer. And sometimes we see it as it's not one company, but it is one company, right? It literally is one company. And I try to provide some facts that just really help you understand this. There is one CEO for the federal market. The federal market basically is the executive branch, and the CEO is the president of the United States. That person is in charge of everybody else. If you think about all those departments, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Defense, or Homeland Security, all of them have secretaries who are in charge. They make up the cabinet, which is basically the executive team underneath the executive office of the president. That is one company. That's exactly how Amazon or Facebook or Walmart or any of these other large companies, ExxonMobil has a president for America, a president for South America, a president for Africa, a president for Europe. They have all these different presidents. If you looked at those organizations, they could seem as disparate as the United States federal market. But when you see the federal market in that organization, that hierarchical structure of a company is no different than the hierarchical structure of the federal market. So one CEO is in charge of all of that. And that CEO puts together one budget. Every one of the agencies, everybody down, all the way down to the smallest office, has a budget request that they send up. But when it comes to the top, it's the office of the president, right? OMB, there is the shop maybe, but it's the president who sits there and says, hey, let's shuffle around the money. You get this, you get that, you get this, right? That office, the office of the executive or the executive office of the president, is managing that budget. Yes, Congress has its role in giving us the money, but it's the president's budget. The president is the leader of the executive branch, which are all these agencies. When you come down, it's one collective buyer. So when the reason I put just like Nordstrom's, and I really wanted to put in your head when you think, it's not one company. Yeah, Nordstrom's is like this, and Nordstrom's has many buyers. The federal agency is like this, and that has many buyers. The Department of Veterans Affairs is like this, and it has many buyers. Right? Many buyers doesn't mean anything. In the Department of Defense, there's over 185,000 acquisition professionals. Those are basically buyers. So over 185,000 buyers in one department alone. When you think about Nordstrom's, there's a buyer for children's clothes. There's a buyer for ladies' clothes, for men's clothes, et cetera, right? All these different departments within a department store, they have their own buyers. And so people will go in and sell to different individuals. That's just like the federal market. So if you can get into Nordstrom's, maybe you can sell to a different department once you get a reputation. When you can get into the federal market, then you slowly begin to organically grow within this big company called the federal market or the federal government, right? It's not like you can get in and get a piece of the trillions of dollars. You get in and you find out where your small piece is, and then you grow that small piece over years. The last thing is that I really want to come back to this idea of the federal government not being one company. It has one set of rules, one ring to rule them all, for example, right? One set of rules. And I just wrote Code of Federal Regulations. I'm not trying to be a rules expert, but basically what I'm saying is the CFR is where the rules are. And inside the CFR is the FAR. And I think it's inside the FAR, chapter 2 or something, is the DFAR, right? They're all together, but it's one rule set on how to do business with this buyer. So this buyer tells its buyers and its vendors, hey, here's how we work together. Here's one common set of rules. Here's generally one common approach to how we acquire, right? The process as we go forward. So as you go forward, don't think of the federal government as many different companies and they're unrelated. It's not that way. They're very related. People from one area go to another, right? I know people who come out of DoD and go into civilian agencies and leadership roles. These people know each other. There's a commonality in the Army. There's a commonality that expands to anybody who's in DoD and then anybody who's a federal employee. So there's a lot of commonality in this company. People take pride working for that company called, the federal government. Okay, really quick before I dive into the last group of information I want to share, I just want to make sure if you haven't already, go download the federal directory, ironically, of small business specialists. They don't provide this, but we do, and it's a list of 1,000+ names, numbers, and emails of small business specialist professionals within these federal agencies I was just talking about. Inside there also are over 100 SBLOs, small business liaison officers for large companies, billion-dollar companies, right? So go in there if you're looking to find somebody's name, number, and email to get into an agency or into a large. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us on Ask Me Anything. This is our homepage, but you can find this on any page on our site. Ask us anything. We just want to be there. If you've got a quick question about government contracting, just shoot it our way if you can't get the answer anywhere else. Okay, so let's talk about the federal market. I just want to kind of go into this idea of why it's so important for you to see the federal market as a potential for you to be able to grow. And I want to make sure I save some time because I want to tell you stories of the reality of hitting all your revenue goals. So the first thing I already said to you was there's one set of rules, right? So that's one thing that's great about the federal market. When you go to the state and local, when you go to commercial, there's as many sets of rules as there are customers. Every state has its own set of rules. Every city within every state has its own acquisition rules, right? It's very important to understand this. And so your learning curve is massive over there. But once your company starts learning about the set of rules here in the federal market, you get good at it. And it applies whether you go from the Army to the Navy or from the Navy to Department of Education or EPA. The set of rules are fundamental to the entire government. The second bullet I have here is we have something that is a centralized supplier portal, right? sam.gov/DSPS. So sam.gov is where every one of us who wants to support or sell to the government registers, one supplier base. DSPS is a subset of that shows us all small businesses that are in SAM that want to sell to the federal market. But this is one centralized supplier portal where the government can find us if they're looking for us. When they do market research, et cetera, they go into SAM and DSPS and try to find small businesses like yours. It's also a place where teaming partners can go. When you keep that data up to date, it's very easy to search for businesses. We just had a customer the other day reach back and say, hey, they asked actually if we had referred them a zero trust architecture opportunity. And they sent the email and this company was saying, hey, we see that you guys are experts at that. We have this opportunity. We just need somebody to join our team to shore up the strength in zero trust architecture. We're like, no, we didn't introduce them to you. The way that they found them was through DSPS. These people updated their DSPS profile and made sure they were communicating their cybersecurity expertise. One single supplier portal. The second thing about sam.gov is it's a transparent list of opportunities. You're going to hear me say transparent a lot because the federal market basically is full transparency. You can really find almost anything you want to find in here. And so here on sam.gov, you've got a transparent list of opportunities. Compare that to state and local or commercial even, right? Maybe state and local have some level of visibility being public entities, but commercial, good luck, right? You have to be in the know. You have to be in there, knocking on doors to hear about opportunities. Here, the government is pushing it out. They have a rule, a law that says they must push it out. Before they award it to any vendor, they must make sure all of industry is aware of it. And so SAM is one place. There's many places, but SAM is the biggest place where you can go in and hear about opportunities. Continuing with that, if you go into FPDS, right? This is if SAM is the registration in the list of opportunities, FPDS is the list of the awards. This is where you can go in and see a centralized list of almost every contract award that was made. There's certain elements that aren't in there, but for the most part, you can see almost every award that was made in the government. This is a transparent list of opportunities and the work that the government and what the government is buying. So there's requirements, the incumbents, the companies that have won those contracts. So you can see who's winning and the price that they paid, the government paid for that. You can't see the detailed price breakdown, but I can look in and see somebody won a contract for elevator maintenance services, $250,000. I'm like, okay, there's the range. That's great. It's good to know. So if I see that opportunity come up again, or a similar opportunity, I know what the government's willing to pay. You could never find that in the commercial world. They're not going to share any of those past awards or who's actually on the contract, very rarely. And they certainly won't sit there and say, what was the price, the winning price? And so keep that in mind. And then as we're moving through the federal government tools, these tools that are really unique to the federal market. There's CPARs, and I think a lot of us call it the Yelp for federal government contracts. When you do a contract of a certain value, you get a CPARs rating, basically a Yelp rating by the government on how well you did executing the contract. And this is awesome because it allows complete visibility to other buyers, other people who might want to work with you can look in and find you, learn about your company, and see what great work you're doing, right? It's one thing for you to say how great you are. It's another for an agency to be able to report that you did satisfactory, you executed satisfactorily on the contract, or very good or exceptional, right? And so this CPARs is something that you don't see in the commercial or state and local. I mean, maybe in Yelp or the Better Business Bureau, but those aren't really used much. Here, CPARs is part of the day-to-day operation of federal buyers. Just coming over to the right-hand side, right? As we continue this idea of the federal market has all these unique things that make them the ideal market for you compared to commercial, for example, is they have a standard acquisition life cycle. The life cycle within state and local education or commercial, those are all unique to each one of those entities. You've got to get in, learn them, but remember, one set of rules. Those set of rules basically say what the acquisition process is. Here's how an opportunity comes forward. And I just put here, beginning with market research, right? The government has an idea. They do some market research. They might do an RFI or sources sought, if you're familiar with those, right? And then they move forward in the acquisition determination as they determine how they want that RFP or RFQ to come out. They drop that, they evaluate the proposals or quotes, and then they make an award, right? There's fair competition within the federal government. Forget about any of those things where you think that, maybe somebody else is getting a better deal. There's always little things. But for the norm, the federal government has complete fairness in its competition, and it works really hard with its rules. I can't go buy a free lunch to a federal buyer to try to sway them. I have the ability to try to sway them with our RFI, et cetera. The evaluation, they're documented how they evaluate and determine the winners. We have the ability to protest. You can't protest a commercial award, but you can go in and protest, for the most part, opportunities within the federal market so that there's always this fairness that's in there. The next thing is opportunity visibility, and this goes back with SAM.gov or FPDS. Opportunity visibility is this idea that the federal market really tries to push opportunities to you. There's so many companies out there that have these tools that you can subscribe to be able to get that data pushed to you. It's in SAM and it's other places, but like GovWin is the most expensive one out there, so I'll just say that one. You can go in and hear about opportunities. There's all this visibility into opportunities. And so long-range acquisition forecasts are a great example of opportunity visibility. Most agencies have these long-range forecasts. You can look at opportunities that go out the rest of this year into FY24 and 25. You can go to GSA, and they've started building out long-range acquisition forecasts for agencies. Agencies come in and say, hey, can you host it for us? If you haven't seen that tool, it's a great tool. We have a director that we put out that has 100 agency long-range acquisition forecasts. That's visibility. If you go in there, going back to elevator services, if you go in there, you're going to find a lot of opportunities related to elevator services throughout these forecasts. Another quick example of opportunity visibility is our advanced planning briefs to industry. You can think of them kind of like industry days, if you're familiar with that, but industry days should be generally focused on one opportunity, where advanced planning briefs are where they come in. I've seen different agencies like Nywick Atlantic will come in and bring different program offices saying, hey, this is what we've got coming down the pipe, and this is what we've got coming down the pipe. And so it lets you see what they're forecasting out without being in the long range forecast. And they talk a little bit more about it. They give you points of contact, et cetera. So these advanced planning briefs, if you haven't searched for APBIs, go search for an APBI on your favorite agency. Go talk to your small business specialist and say, hey, how can I get a copy of the APBI, or when's the next advanced planning brief to industry? Whatever it is, so I can hear about it. Sometimes they'll call it different names. The last thing I just wanted to mention about the federal market and why it is, why I just tell you, I don't tell everybody to get in the federal market, but what I say is if you're in the federal market, get out of everything else, because the federal market is going to be your best friend. This is your marriage, right? If you're in the federal market, you have unlimited growth potential. Takes time, but it takes time to grow anywhere, right? Commercial, state, local. But when you grow within the federal market, every single experience and every single year builds on itself. The amount of relationships you can find and build. The fact that we're even competitive mates instead of competitors. One day we compete, one day we're teaming, right? That's norm in the federal market. It's not the norm everywhere else. And so what I wanted to give you an example of just here is NAVSEA. If you're not familiar with NAVSEA, it's Naval Sea Systems Command. It's one of the 6 Navy system commands so the Navy is in the Department of Navy, which includes the Navy and the Marine Corps, and that's part of Department of Defense, right? So the NAVSEA is just one of the 10 major commands and one of the 6 Navy system commands. This one command has 80,000 employees, roughly $36 billion in spend budget that they have available. Inside, they have 42 activities or subordinate commands. I've done all sorts of training on NAVSEA in particular, where under there you can find the Naval Surface Warfare Centers, and there's like 6 or 8 of them, and underwater warfare centers, 2 of them. You can go in, and each one of them have their own large budgets as you go forward, and you can see where this money's being spent. They have almost 200 major programs that you can get engaged with at different levels. When you get into NAVSEA, say you get a contract or a subcontract, your ability to grow, your ability to see that you can grow to $1 million company or a $10 million or $100 million company, right? None of it overnight, all of it through hard work. But because they have such a large budget, you're able to keep expanding. You're able to talk to the people you're doing good work for. And do you know anybody else over here? Do you know anybody else over here? And you begin to get those introductions, and they go back to CPARs and they see, oh, you guys have done good work. Yeah, let's go ahead and bring you in. So the growth potential it's really unlimited within the federal market. Certainly unlimited as a small business, because if it goes so high, you'll become a large business. All right, so here's what I want you to remember from today's training. Again, I kind of said this a second ago, but if you're in the federal market, be all in. Just go all in and commit yourself. Absolutely. If you're an 8A firm, get out of every other market. You only got a 9-year window, and that 9-year window is in the federal market. You can grow a $10 million company easily as an 8A firm if you're all in and you do the right things. You might need some support. There's all sorts of people out there who can support you. I showed a training recently about the 12 mentors, and most of them are free, right? So there's ways to grow. Be all in on the federal market if you're in the federal market. Second thing is consider one agency. And so I said NAVSEA. If you expand that to Navy or go over to HHS, I would consider a department being an agency just to make it easy on you, but DHS, HHS. If you go in there, basically what you look for is the first place you get traction. Once you get traction, you go, okay, this is where I'm building my house. And so if you get traction in HHS, stop looking everywhere else. Start building. It's so easy to let yourself be distracted and go places, but it's hard work to till the land and to plant the soil, sow the crops and reap the crops, whatever that farm analogy is, right? You got to stay on the land and work the land. And so going into one agency is how you work the land and grow. And you can grow to whatever goals you want within one department. Here's my task for you. Just determine your one agency. Do you know it right now? Where are you strongest? What's preventing you from determining to go all in on that agency? Hey, if you don't know, we do training every single day, right? Every single business day. So go to my profile. You can find the trainings listed there. You can find replays. Make sure you sign up. Add me to your calendar, noon for East Coast time. Just have a cup of coffee or lunch and come learn every single day. You've got me teaching you, and you've got the community where you can meet 2, 3, 10 new people every single day. That's a pretty good thing. If you're getting value from the training, do me a favor, become a sustaining member. Go check out our website. For all of us, remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.